and I'm a 12th generation Alden descendant. My ancestors, John and Priscilla Alden, are two of the most famous passengers who traveled on the Mayflower to the New World in 1620. John and Priscilla now have more than 1 million descendants, including famous poets, movie stars, scientists, presidents, and me. I'm standing in front of a modern replica of the Mayflower, the ship that took John and Priscilla to the New World on one of the most transformative voyages in history. John was just 21 years old when he stepped aboard the ship. He was the ship's cooper, hired by the captain to put supplies in barrels and safely store them on the Mayflower. Priscilla was just a teenager when she boarded the ship. Priscilla traveled with her father, mother, brother, and a servant. Her father, William Mullins, sold his prosperous shoe business and his family home in Dorking, England, with all the hopes and dreams placed in the New World. William Bradford described John as a hopeful young man, and fortunately for me, he decided to join them in the New World instead of going home to England. In September 1620, the Mayflower sailed from England to their intended destination of the Hudson River Valley, in what is now the state of New York. But Mother Nature had a different plan as storms blew them off course. Despite discontented and mutinous speeches, the group came together to sign a document describing how they would govern themselves and serve in the new and strange land. Today, we remember this remarkable agreement as the Mayflower Compact. The Compact has been described as the foundation for the United States Constitution, and my ancestor John signed this historic document.
The ship's passage to the New World was a difficult one. They arrived at the worst possible time, the start of the New England winter. Unable to sail anywhere else because the cold and freezing weather had set in, the Pilgrims needed to quickly establish a settlement. I'm standing by the marker where the Pilgrims built the very first structure in Plymouth. During that horrific first winter, half of the ship's passengers and crew died from scurvy and other diseases.
By spring, Priscilla had lost her father, mother, and brother, leaving her an orphan in the New World. At one point, only 6 passengers were able to attend to all of the others who had become bedridden with illness.
Now, able-bodied men left the ship by day to build a storehouse, which was here, for their essential supplies.
The men lived in the storehouse and used it as a shelter until they could build small cottages for families. When spring 1621 finally came, the Mayflower returned to England.
Conditions were very grim, but both John and Priscilla stayed with the colony. This is Burial Hill, and this is where we believe John Alden lived in Plymouth. The marker is at the base of the hill where the fort was built to protect the colony. Ongoing archaeological excavation near here has revealed evidence of a 17th century house, the palisade, and more.
After a few years, life in Plymouth really did get easier. A visitor from England described Plymouth in 1623. Well situated on a high hill close to the seaside. There are about 20 houses, 4 or 5 which are fair and pleasant, surrounded by an 8-foot palisade with goats, hogs, pigs, and hens. Gardens are enclosed in clapboard and are neat and orderly. John and Priscilla's romance is legendary. Their story was immortalized 250 years later when Alden descendant and famed poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote The Courtship of Miles Standish. According to the story, Miles Standish's wife had passed away, so the captain approached Priscilla's father to ask permission to marry his daughter.
Mr. Mullins replied it was perfectly agreeable to him, but that the young lady must also be consulted. For reasons unknown, Miles Standish sent John Alden to do the asking for him.
It was an odd choice, considering Alden was described as a man of most excellent form. Nevertheless, he delivered Standish's request.
Priscilla considered the offer and famously replied with the words, "Prithee, John, why do you not speak for yourself?" Apparently, John took the hint, continued his visits, and their wedding soon followed.
Today, this field behind Duxbury Public Schools plays host to various sports activities. But tucked in the corner and lying hidden underneath is a nearly 400-year-old foundation for a small home measuring just 10.5 by 38 feet. Archaeologists discovered these remains about 60 years ago. It was here that John and Priscilla raised their 10 children, farmed, and helped establish the town of Duxbury. Now, Duxbury was the second act of the Pilgrim experience in America, and the Aldens played a crucial role in that story.
As if they didn't have enough to worry about just trying to survive day to day, the colonists were also dealing with money problems. They were struggling to pay down the debt to the merchant adventurers who had financed the expedition. Now, at first they thought they could ship salted or dry fish back to England, but with no proper fishing boats and even fewer fishing skills, they soon moved on to other ventures. They looked at exporting timber and finished barrel staves, but that didn't generate enough revenue either.
Eventually, the colonists turned to the fur trade, which was extremely profitable at the time. A trade with Native Americans for beaver furs could result in 1,000% profit when resold on the docks of England. Englishmen purchased the pelts, removed the fur, and compressed it into felt to make highly fashionable hats. The Plymouth colonists established 4 trading posts: Penobscot, Kennebec River, Manamet River on Upper Cape Cod, and Windsor Locks, Connecticut. John's coopering skills were useful for making the casks and barrels used to store the goods they transported to the trading posts. John's trips lasted for days or even weeks at a time, and fur trading, being a lucrative business, also meant it was a dangerous business. There was intense competition from the French in the north, the Dutch from the south, and even Massachusetts Bay colonists from Boston. They all competed with Plymouth Colony. John and his partners kept their trading posts well guarded and remained vigilant for rivals who would steal their furs or burn their trading posts.
The home site helps us understand a little bit more about Priscilla. We know her life was difficult. She had to care for 10 children while also looking after the farm, since John was often absent in the fur trade and serving as a leader of the colony. From the book The English Housewife, written in 1615, we learn some of the skills she needed as the mother and mistress of the family. She must know physic, cookery, banqueting stuff, distillation, perfumes, wool, hemp, flax, dairies, brewing, baking, and all other things belonging to the household. And if that weren't enough, she must also be religious, and by her example, spur all her family to pursue the same steps. An excavation at the site conducted in the 1960s provides a tantalizing glimpse into her life. Pieces of ceramics like redware milk pans were things she used to make cheese and butter. Large jars stored food for the family. A blue and green tin glazed earthenware charger decorated the wall and was used along with an expensive wine cup imported from China, no less, to serve to guests. This is the Miles Standish Burial Ground, where the Aldens are buried with several other Mayflower passengers. Nearby is the site of the meeting house, where the very first residents of Duxbury met, worshipped, and conducted town business. This quiet spot in the southwest corner of the cemetery is home to the gravestones of my ancestors, John and Priscilla Alden, as reminders of 2 lives well lived. Priscilla died sometime before John, who died at the remarkable age of 87. He was remembered as wholly humble and sincere. Beyond being a fur trader, cooper, and farmer, John Alden involved himself in the civil affairs of the colony. As a man with a reputation for serving justice impartially, he held many positions in the colonial government, as assistant governor, deputy to the Plymouth court, colony treasurer, and a member of councils of war. Situated on top of a knoll, this comfortable colonial home shared the joys and sorrows of generations of descendants of John and Priscilla, who made their living from the land, sea, trade, and military, and faced changes and challenges that shaped New England. Today, the home is owned by the Alden Kindred of America and welcomes visitors to explore one of America's founding stories through guided tours of Alden House, educational programs, events, and genealogy research. It is the only Pilgrim property that has been continuously owned by the same family and is designated a National Historic Landmark for its exceptional importance to the history and culture of this country. We hope you'll enjoy your visit and invite you to join the Alden Kindred to help preserve the legacy of John and Priscilla for future generations.